Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Pops.
And welcome to our current Week 15 of the NFL. We'll get into it. Pops is going to have to talk about the Bears here. They played, I don't want to say good because they lost the game, but there was some – Caleb's got a great arm. I think the Bears' quarterback future looks bright, if I'm being honest, especially going into late in the year, too. I think that he's played really well under Ben Johnson. The yards aren't really coming in terms of the game. I saw in the fourth he had 180 yards passing, which he's really just – the touchdown throw he threw on the run to the right in the corner, I mean –
incredible. Around Micah through a defender.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff that gives you hope. However, he had the guy. I know it was fourth down. I didn't like the play call just because I don't really like a boot on fourth when you're leaving pretty much one guy open. That's it. If he had threw it over the shoulder, or sooner, yeah, there was a possibility. It was a difficult position to be in for that game.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that I looked at it, too, was that had the Bears scored more than a field goal in the first half, I think the Bears would have walked away with a victory at Lambeau. I really do, because you go back and look, that first half, man, I was just sitting there. I was like, all right, here we go. It's just another Packers beat down. And I texted you guys. I'll be honest right now. I texted you guys, I already see it being a split this season, and I already knew. I was already prepared that we were going to lose this game. Just being realistic. And I've talked about it, I'm still in disbelief that the Bears are playing this well this season, based on the record standpoint. Obviously there's a lot of issues. For me, our defense sucks when we don't get takeaways. Anybody can drive on the Bears if they don't get takeaways. And, we saw it. We had plenty of blown coverages, and Watson was taking off on us and all this other kind of stuff. For easy touchdowns that Jordan Love was able to convert. Conversely, we also were able to intercept them. The one thing that really scared me was there was no pass rush against Jordan Love. They had the most difficult time trying to get to him. So that's what I've got on the defensive side. On the offensive side, everybody's been talking about Caleb's completion percentage the last couple of games because it's been hovering right around 50%. When you watch him, what happens is a lot of times this is where I wish sometimes he would take off. Now, there was plenty of tape last Sunday that Micah was in his face, so he could not take off running. Caveat is that he typically extends these plays trying to find the open guy, and then he just throws a ball that ends up hitting the dirt or throwing it out of bounds. So he does make a lot of plays like that when he goes out on the run, gets out of the pocket, that end up dropping. But when he has time to throw the ball, or when he's throwing it on the run and he's got an open guy, I mean he's spot on. And I'm really excited. The one thing you're talking about is passing yards. I think Ben Johnson has just moved to the 1-2 punch with Swift and Monungai, and he kept trying. He kept doing it even though we were getting stopped in the first half. He just kept going back to the run game, trying to open it up so that it could take some pressure off of Caleb in the second half. And, obviously that second half was a lot better, from our standpoint. And I was looking at it because we went for it. There was a 4th and 1, and I actually called Caleb running the boot because I think we ran it 3 straight times, and it was 4th and 1. I was like, hey, I'm running a boot here because everybody's cracking down in the middle, and Caleb ran the boot. So I thought that was going to be the same thing that they did to end the game. And then from my perspective, I texted you guys. I thought DJ was open. He wasn't until Caleb released the ball. So DJ was not open underneath. I also think if Caleb would have threw the ball higher, which it was a tough throw already, running to your left, throwing off your right arm. I think had he thrown the ball up a little bit higher, Kmet would have had a chance to go play for it. He just underthrew it on the run, which, again, was a tough throw, and Mixon made a great play because Mixon was assigned to DJ Moore and then saw Kmet behind him and just made a great football play. But
I think the only way he completes that is to throw it to where the ball is going to hit out of bounds.
Yeah.
And he has to turn around to catch it, just because I think the defender still, if he had thrown it even higher, if the ball is in front of Kmet, I still don't see him. It's going to be contested. It'll be a 50-50 ball, but I think if he threw it over the top of him where he had to turn around and really tap his toes, falling out of bounds, that's probably the only way that was going to work, just based upon where the defender was at. But
and that was the thing, was like looking at the tape, Kmet was uncovered from the snap, and just Caleb just had to see that sooner. And that's what Ben Johnson alluded to yesterday as well.
Well, the good news, you get a game
Rematch
this week and then right back at them.
Yeah.
Thursday, getting into week 15, Falcons, who are now eliminated from postseason, they got murdered by the Seahawks. It was close in the first half, and then Seattle just dropped it on them. Are playing the Bucks, who the Bucks lose to the Saints, and that loss hurts. The Bucks are sitting at 7-6, and right now the playoff picture for the NFC. Sorry, Pops. Bears went from 1st to 7th.
Yeah.
So still in the playoffs, but right now for the NFC, you've got the Rams in first place in the NFC. The Packers are in second right now. In third place, this is where the Bucks are sitting, but they're the Eagles are sitting. Fourth is the Bucks at 7-6. Seattle's, on a tear. They're 10-3. It's going to come down to how they finish out the rest of the season compared to the Seattle. Niners 9-4, and the Bears are sitting at 9-4 in the 7th seed. So the Panthers are also 7-6. They're second in the NFC South. So it's them and really the Bucks. So this is a pretty important game for Tampa Bay. Right now, Tampa Bay's 4.5-point favorites. How do you see the game going Thursday night?
Dude, it's just like we talked about a couple weeks ago. It's like the Buccaneers have a comfortable lead, midway through the season, and then they just start dropping the ball, losing games that they have no business losing. And it's really it leaves you hanging of like, what was going on. We know the Saints are terrible. How were they able, I think, what was it, 27? Or they put up 30? Was it 27-24? Anyways, how were they able to, just put up so many points on the board against a team that's typically known for the defense, with a really good quarterback, injured receivers. But, dude, I wish I knew why the Buccaneers fall apart at the end of the season and then barely make the playoffs. Because I still think that the Buccaneers will be able to do it. Obviously, this week will be dependent, but also Kirk Cousins looks nothing like who he used to be in Minnesota, and I think that's really going for them going into this game. So I think the Buccaneers win this game.
It was Saints 24-20 over the Bucks this past week.
Yeah.
What you just said is the reason that I like the Bucks is that I feel like I'm watching Teddy Bridgewater a few years ago when he came into play for the Dolphins, like just someone that's like, dog, I don't want to be here. Like, it's whatever happens with Kirk, this is his last ride. He may be a backup on some team. I mean, plenty of teams are willing to take a pass at a guy. The issue is I don't know if he's going to be willing to take up backup money after what he's been paid year after year after year. So I think when his time's over with the Falcons, I think that's the last we're going to see of Kirk Cousins.
For sure.
Sunday, Bears, Browns. You got to deal with Shador, who honestly hasn't played bad. He looks way more in control of the offense than Dylan Gabriel ever did. Browns are 3-10. They really fought hard against the Titans. They had an opportunity there at the end. I hate taking your quarterback out of the game on a 2-point conversion. I think that's dumb for really a trick play that I really couldn't tell whether he forgot to toss it to the dude or what. Like, if that was the way it was designed, if he thought he had the edge, I couldn't tell. Clearly once he passed him, he was like, well, that was a mistake, and the play was blown up. But they're coming off the loss of the Titans. Bears coming off the loss of the Packers. A game to get right before seeing the Packers again in Soldier Field. Do the Bears get it done?
I hope so. Looking at it on paper, I think obviously the Bears, had the advantage. But also you look at how the Bears played the Bengals, and that's just one of those things that's just very concerning for me. You know, this will be the true test of, you know, how are the Bears able to bounce back. Obviously, they still got a good defense, but also in my mind, I'm just like, well, they gave up 31 to the Titans, you know, and we all have seen how that experiment's worked out this year. And, you know, the Titans and the Browns were with the Jets were kind of playing for who gets the first draft pick. And, dude, I do like what Shadour's doing. I think I understand where all the criticism and everything comes from the kid, but, like, you still got to give him a fair shot. You know, like if his last name was Smith, nobody would be batting an eye at who this kid was. But purely because he's Deion's son, like he's already got the biggest disadvantage against him every single game. And I enjoyed that he's having, you know, a good game like that. I think he put up like 247. He had 3 touchdowns and, you know, he ran for 1 as well. Like that's an incredible performance, you know, for being a rookie quarterback, regardless of who you play. Just his ability, and he made some really good throws. We saw it when he came in, I think, against the Raiders. When he came in, he had that one to Fannin. Like, he's able to – he's progressing the way that he's supposed to, and I really just hope that the Browns aren't screwing him up in the long run. But I'm still going to give it to the Bears because the Bears need it. You know, like, this is one of those things where the Bears just have to win the games. You know, they've got 2 remaining. They've got – the out of conference. They've got 2 remaining between the Browns and the 49ers. Like, those are wins that we have to have. I know the 49ers probably going to be more tough than the Browns, but like I said, the Browns got a good defense, and that's kind of concerning for me.
For the Browns, the steal of the draft, in my opinion, is not Shadour. It's Fannin. Mm-hmm. Fannin's been phenomenal, which he was an all-time collegiate leader last season at Bowling Green. Like, he had the statistics. It was just he played for a smaller Division I school that no one really, you know, they just chalked it up to, oh, he caught a bunch because he's playing a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah.
Nah, the dude can play. And I think he's going to play so well, in fact, that they're going to get rid of Njoku, not because Njoku's bad, but just from like a business side
standpoint.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think he'll be on the move because of how well Fannin's playing. It's an easy – they need help on the offense with receivers and other things. If the Browns really want to build, that's what they're going to have to do. Looking at the game, what you said about Jordan Love is in the inability to get pressure, that's what I worry about for the Bears against the Browns' offenses. I think Shadour's more mobile than Jordan Love, so if you really don't get to him and the coverage breaks down and he's able to get out, is he going to run for 40 yards in terms of a single run? Probably not, but just the ability to keep moving the change, that's what hurts. And I'm a big agreement with you. That's the biggest issue I see with the Bears right now is the inability to get to the QB. If that doesn't change, it's going to be hard going through the rest of the season. Because like you said, I think I heard it a few weeks ago during the Thanksgiving broadcast with Brady, is he always said that around like week 12 is where Belichick would be like, hey, we're now in football season. Like, this is where it matters. Like, nothing's changing. Like, post all the trades and everything, nothing's changing. We know who we are. We know what we need to do to execute. Every one of these games matters right now because it just, towards the end of the season, I just read through how the Bears went from 1st in the NFC to 7th. Like, it changes in a matter of a heartbeat. So each of these games matter. If the Bears want a shot, they got to win the game.
Absolutely.
They have to win this game. So I'm with you. I'm going to take the Bears. I don't like the 7.5 point odds. I like, you know, a little bit tighter of a game just because of how good Cleveland's defense is, but I'll take the Bears.
The one thing, last piece, is that, you know, this gives Dennis Allen the ability to confuse a young quarterback, and that's what I'm relying on, you know, hoping that they can disguise the coverages appropriately, and Shadour just makes a lot of mistakes as a rookie. Because the Bears right now are leading the league in takeaways. And, you know, like I said, that's the only way that the Bears win these games is, you know, the defense is able to get the takeaways.
Yeah. Next game up, Ravens come off a really bad loss to the Steelers. Bengals give one away to the Bills. Game right now, Baltimore's 2.5. Baltimore, they gotta have. Both teams have to have this. Neither team's officially eliminated from playoff contention, but you lose this. I'm not sure in terms of if one of these teams will be eliminated, but in terms of the ability to compete for the division, the Bengals and Ravens have to have it. Ravens right now, like I said, line is -2.5. Do you like the Ravens or the Bengals in the game?
Honestly, man, being at Cincinnati, besides Joe Burrow's 2 interceptions last week, like they would have beat the Bills, like handedly. They would have beat the Bills had that not happened. Despite the struggles that the Bengals defense has had all season, it just goes to show when you have a weapon as your quarterback who can put points on the board, it kind of doesn't matter. During the regular season, obviously you need a good defense once you get to the playoffs and start playing better defenses. But give me the Bengals for the upset of the week. Like, I don't trust Lamar right now. Like, maybe now it's starting to show maybe what Arthur Blank was seeing down there in the Falcons when they didn't trade for him. Like, I don't know who this Lamar guy is, that's playing this season. I know he's been fighting a lot of injuries and stuff like that. I was talking to my neighbors the other day, and they said it best. They were like, Derrick Henry has been punished for the 2 fumbles that he had the very first game of the season. And I was like, that's actually a pretty good take because my man has not been given the ball the way that a guy like him is supposed to get it. And that's created so many issues for their offense. And, I mean, we could talk about, Isaiah Likely's touchdown that may or may not have been a touchdown.
It was a touchdown.
I agree. But, they still lost to the Steelers, so both of their backs are against the wall. I think the Ravens defense is struggling, and it has been all season. That's why they're not as potent as they had been in the past, mixed with issues on the offense. Joey B is playing with a chip on his shoulder like he always does, and I would take him because, again, like I said, they should have beat the Bills.
For me, what you said about their defense is the reason I like the Bengals. And it's not about the Bengals. It's more about the Ravens defense has cost them. That's the reason they're at 6-7 right now. Yes, Lamar being hurt him a few games. The identity with Lamar and all that, and the question, he's always going to get picked on because I feel like most people don't think he's a true NFL passing quarterback. Mm-hmm. But from the standpoint of what you just talked about with Henry, they don't have an identity on our offense. And honestly, it's like outside of the position of tight end and Zay Flowers, they don't have anyone else to throw the ball to. The Ravens have been known for years to never find a receiver in the first round. Like, they have struggled in the wide receiver department. So they've based it upon the run, but they're not running the football. And on the opposite side, dude, I mean, they gave up a rushing touchdown to Aaron Rodgers. And I know that Rodgers can scramble every once in a while, but at this point, what we saw the Steelers offense last week, I was there. I watched the Steelers get humiliated by the Bills handedly, and the Ravens could not stop them. Like, dude, defense, we knew that last year. Ravens defense was bad. I think Joe Burrow blows them up. Like, he going to light them up. Because like you said, they should have beat the Bills. That pick six down on the, that was a 14-point swing. That killed them. And it doesn't help that, yes, the Bengals defense is still trash. I mean, Josh Allen, superhuman with that 40-yard touchdown run, but that's a bad defense for the Bengals. But I like the Bengals in the game. Next game, who would have thought we'd be saying this? I mean, the Chiefs are really on the position of being eliminated. Going against the Chargers, who come off a good win last night against the Eagles, going against the Chiefs, who dropped one Sunday night to the Texans, that the Texans defense really I'll say this, both they had 2 offensive linemen hurt pregame, lose an offensive lineman during the game. I would argue that the vast majority of the Chiefs' problems is the offensive line. When you don't have an offensive line, I still remember us talking about this year one of the podcast, that Dak, he was getting a lot of beat up after they had that good playoff run, and it was like, dude, their offensive line was trash. I remember he got sacked like 7 times against the Falcons. It's like, I don't care what you have. If you don't have a good offensive line, it's going to show, and for the Chiefs, it's showing. Pulling them up in terms of their position, they're riding 10th right now. They're still on the bubble. Their current playoff percentage probability is at 11%, so it ain't looking good. They really have to have the win here against the Chargers. Do you think that the Chargers sort of fall off after beating the Eagles and open the door for the Chiefs?
I don't. No, I'll take the Chargers in the game. I mean, last night was good to see because both teams had so many turnovers. you know, and it was like it was scrummy. You know, like until they were able to get settled down in the second half. Like, man, I like the defense with the Chargers, especially going up against Mahomes. Like, they were able to get to Jalen last night, you know, and they're going to do the same exact thing. I would argue that the Eagles have a better offensive line than the Chiefs. And one of the things that they were talking about, I read it this week, was the trade of Joe Tooney to the Bears. Like, it shows. You know, like you watch the Bears play every snap. Tooney's looking back at Caleb to call the protection pretty much almost every single play. And I'm just like, that's a pretty good pickup. You know, like, he got a little bit of heat early in the season, but I think they found their rhythm. And, you know, the Chiefs just didn't want to pay the guy, you know, and now we're seeing this year they're unable to get a run game going. I think obviously that's part of it when the Hogs up front aren't able to move the defense, and then that just closes down the pass. And, dude, I know Pat's coming off his worst career game. I think he had 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, and like the lowest yards he's ever thrown ever. And, dude, it was awful to watch. They're in crisis mode, and I think going up against another good defense like the Chargers, I give the edge to the Chargers.
The only thing that I think worries me is Jalen had 5 turnovers, one of which I don't really count just because it was 2 on the same play. Like, it wasn't. I just say that in terms of not counting the turnover. It wasn't like a separate drive. It was all in the same play. So, like, regardless, that the Chargers still got the ball. It still went to overtime.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, he threw all them picks, and they still took the Chargers to overtime. I think the Eagles' defense is pretty stinking good. The only thing that makes me worry is Spag is going to antagonize Herbert with that beat-up offensive line. If that's the Chiefs' whole game, if they can just get to Herbert, then they have a chance. If they don't, the game's out of touch. Because I'm with you. I think the Chargers defense will play well against a beat-up Mahomes. I think it's going to be a close game. Right now, Kansas City's -3.5. I'm on the opposite end. I like Kansas City in the game. I keep going back to this. Like, I just feel like at some point the Chiefs are going to get a win. I'm not them losing 3 straight. You know, Dallas this week, you know, or last week against the Texans, going into the week against the Chargers. I got to take the Chiefs just from like a pure statistical anomaly. Like, it's hard to bet against them this many times in a row.
I saw a pretty funny meme that was like all the Chiefs fans jumping off the bandwagon and getting their Patriot jerseys back out.
It's funny that you say that because the next game is Bills-Pats. And, dude, this is a game. Like, this, for me, this is sort of the game of the week. Mm-hmm. Bills got to have it. Like, if they want the division, they have to have this game. The Patriots are sitting 11-2 in terms of AFC seedings. Just to break those down, the Broncos are first place, 11-2, followed by the Patriots, Jags, and then the Steelers. The 3 wild card teams are Chargers, Bills, and Texans as we sit right now. This is made for Josh Allen. Like, this is one of those games that you got to have that performance out of him. My only question is, and this is what I'll field to you, is what Bills team do we see? Like, do we see the team last week against the Bengals, or do we see the team that played against the Falcons or played against the Dolphins? Like, what Bills team do you think we're going to see Sunday against Vrabel and the Pats?
Well, and that's another thing, too, is like, you know, James Cook also had a costly fumble, you know, that could have been a touchdown last week. So, I mean, there were opportunities where the Bills missed against the Bengals as well to put points on the board. If I'm just looking at it from 2, you can't really call them juggernauts. You call the Patriots juggernauts, I reckon, just because they have 2 losses. But, the Bills have been struggling in certain games that they have no business struggling in. Realistically, from a statistical standpoint, just like you said, I think it's going to be very tough for the Patriots to beat them twice in one season in these division games. I will give the edge to Buffalo. I think Buffalo will continue to fight. I think after last week coming down, they had a 21-point swing. I think that really gave them a lot of momentum going into this matchup against the Patriots, and I will give the edge to the Bills going into this game, just purely on it's very difficult interdivision to beat an opponent twice.
I'm in the same boat. I like the Bills in the game. This is just it's not a dislike of the Patriots or anything. I just feel like this is like not. I feel like it's still 1 year too soon. Like if this was next year, I'd be like, dude, the Patriots gonna win this game. Like I think they're still a young team, and it's sort of like the Broncos. Don't get me wrong, Broncos have played well, but you go back and you look at some of these games. I said it last week. I really feel like they're sort of like the Vikings from a few years ago. They keep winning these 1-score games, and it's like, the record looks great, but I don't feel like they're an 11-2 team, and that's sort of how I feel about the Pats right now. Like they've won some games, they've looked good, but at the same time, there's also some times that you're just like, I don't think that they're the number 2 seed in the AFC right now. So I got the Bills as well at the game. And
just like you just mentioned it, and what happened to that Vikings team first round of the playoffs?
Lost to Danny Diamond Giants.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of going to be the litmus test for the Broncos. Like, hey, was this just a fluke, or did you guys get lucky, and just win these 1-score games by chance, or are you guys legit? And we'll get to the Broncos, but obviously we've seen the struggles out of Bo Nix.
Yeah. Next game, Commanders, Giants. Both teams eliminated from playoff contention. Giants minus 2.5-point favorites. Commanders got absolutely blown out of the water by the Vikings last week. I mean, just absolutely smacked. That was a really, really bad loss. Giants were on a bye week, so they're getting a fresh look at Jackson Dart. Based upon what I saw in Minnesota, it's hard not to pick the Giants in the game.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as well. Like Mariota's highlight was him saying sorry to his Zach Ertz for getting his knee blown out. Like Mariota, obviously, he reached his pinnacle as a backup. Like his high point was obviously the Heisman year at Oregon, and we have not seen that same guy, in the NFL. Just a different game, different speed. I too think the Giants are going to be able to pull it out. Really big thing is if Abdul Carter is actually, doing what he's supposed to do and gets out on the field. But the Giants have a better defense. Obviously, we saw last week what a good defense can do to the Commanders, and I think it's a lot of the same this week with the Giants.
It's hard saying this because I get it's only year one. I feel like Carter's a bust. Two reasons. So one, the problems, the problems off the field is huge. The second is this is really one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. So the fact that he's not going to get double teamed most of the time, like you are really getting the peak at one-on-one matchups possible. And I'm not seeing it. Like, I'm not seeing the guy that we sort of thought in the offseason was the number one pick, possibly. That was sort of the conservative, like, hey, this guy has looked phenomenal. I don't see it. Like, the prima donna, both on and off the field, it's leading me to right now, he either figures it out in the offseason or, dude, he ain't getting retained. Like,
for sure.
It's 4 years and he's out of the Giants. Or they may trade him. Like, it's not a good look for him right now. Next game up, Raiders, who are absolute just I don't know how else it's worse than a trash can on fire floating down a burning river. I don't know what's worse than that, but whatever it is, it's the Las Vegas Raiders playing the Eagles right now. Philly is minus 11.5-point favorites. As bad as the offenses look for Philly, I don't see any chance of them losing this game. against the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't disagree as well. Like the, you know, a lot of these struggles, like you look at the last 2 weeks, I think it's been a contributing factor has been Jalen Hurts' decision making. You know, they were showing a little bit of clips last night of where Jalen was missing in the Bears game. You know, they showed some clips where the one in particular was Goddard was wide open over the middle. He chose to throw to Devontae Smith, and it would have been a touchdown had he seen Goddard. You know, it's just right now Jalen's not playing good football. He's turning the ball over, making bad throws, and I think playing the Raiders is a perfect game to get that dialed back in and get a good win under your belt. You know, probably a 10-point game realistically, you know, just based off of what we're seeing with these Raiders. Because, I mean, going up against the Eagles defense, I don't see Geno or Pickett, being able to do much of anything, you know, besides maybe cover, which Portnoy's up in arms about. But
I saw that.
Yeah,
Welcome to the NFL and trying to pick an actual parlay. It's hard. Next game, Jets, who are eliminated from playoff contention, going against the Jags, who every week I just keep sitting back and you're like, well, now that Danny Dimes tore the Achilles, it's really between them and the Texans of the division. I think both are still going, based upon how well both of these teams' defenses, the Texans and the Jags, are playing, I'd argue that both of them are getting in the playoffs. Like, I don't see that changing in terms of, I think it's just going to be a flip of who wins the division and who's the wild card, but it's hard to pick against the Jags. They're minus 12.5-point favorites, and the Jets last week looked horrific against the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins just absolutely stomped them into oblivion. I got the Jags.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and honestly, it's kind of it's pretty neat. Everybody's talking about Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson, and Liam Cohen's just being left alone down in Jacksonville, and they just keep winning. You know, and I think that's just a testament of what he's been able to do. Everybody, you know, made fun of him for, you know, the way he said Duval in the initial interview when he was welcomed to the team, but he's brought a culture to him. You know, like we saw the Doug Peterson experiment fail. We saw the Urban Meyer not even last a season. You know, like I think they're finally getting on the right track of where they need to be, and they're playing extremely good football right now. And, you know, hats off to Trevor Lawrence, you know, being able to somewhat live up to some of the money. We'll see when it comes down to the playoffs, and I think they got to play the Texans again. You know, so we'll get a really good look of who this Jaguars team is going into the playoffs, and I've got the edge off to the Jaguars. I don't think – I would be surprised if Aaron Glenn makes it into year 2, realistically. But we've seen the Jets do this. Robert Saleh got 3 seasons before they canned him. So I'd be real interested to see what they're going to choose to do with Aaron Glenn.
The Jets are going to do whatever is the worst thing for the organization. It's why the Jets, you know, Super Bowl III winners have not been back to one since.
Yeah.
There is a reason. I think that the Aaron Glenn, he's going to be a scapegoat for the organizational problems that they have.
Correct.
You know, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if it was Aaron Glenn or who it was that, you know, he's still going to bear responsibility for bringing in Fields. The offense has looked horrific. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times on this that game in London, I think Fields had like under 10 yards passing. Like it was hard to watch. From that standpoint, I don't know what Aaron Glenn's going to do to fix it. And I don't know how do you convince someone to be like, hey, I need you to come be an offensive coordinator for the Jets? It's just like, if I was a good offensive coordinator worth anything, you're sort of looking at that roster and you're like, there is nothing I can do with this. And based upon the draft class that's going to come out, don't get me wrong, Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback, has an arm. Like, he showed that against Ohio State. There were times that he was running defender in the face, and he threw some that I was like, and that's an NFL arm. Like, yeah. Better than Ty Simpson, better than Carson Beck, better than even Julian Sayin. Like, what I saw probably the best arm in the class. I think he has a good attitude and everything. Do I think he's the solution? No, because the Jets have a million different problems they have to fix, and you traded away. I don't think Sauce was living up to the reputation. I think that was a good trade for a first-round pick. Quentin Williams, I think he is a very good defensive tackle. You did get some good picks, another first-round pick for him. It's hard to argue with that. The problem is that based upon the history of the Jets' draft success, it's hard to sit back and be like they're going to nail these 3 first-round picks they've been given. Like, that's the issue.
Well, and that's the piece, too, is, all the chatter that went around Breece Hall, at the trade deadline. Like, I could see those names don't get thrown around just because. Like, he was probably in discussions places. Apparently, the most valid thing that I did hear was the speculation with the Chiefs. But the Chiefs did not want to give up good enough draft picks for Breece Hall, and that's the only reason why that didn't go through. So they're going to be in a rebuilding process because they won't have a running back. You've got Garrett Wilson. He's been hurt all year, and then who's going to be the quarterback? So, yes, looking at it from that standpoint, like, they're already in shambles moving into year 2 of Aaron Glenn.
Yeah. Next game, talked about the Texans. They get a home game against the Cardinals. Texans coming off a big win against the Chiefs. The Cardinals got absolutely smashed by the Rams. I asked this to Maul last week. I'll ask this to you because I don't think any one of us is going to have picking the Cardinals. Both of us probably going to pick the Texans, so I'll focus this in a different light. Do you think the Cardinals look different for a quarterback and get rid of Murray?
Dude, I think so. Yeah, I knew where you were going to go with that question after listening to last week's episode. It has not lived up. Like, is he an athlete? Yes, he is. Like, has he shown glimpses of incredible hope? Yes, he has. But when it comes down to the consistency, when it comes down to just being there week after week, there was that off-the-field stuff with studying. Like, dude, I think that his time has come out, and he's done as the starter for the Cardinals. If I was the GM, I'd be looking to move on. Brissett, honestly, like, and we knew it was just a matter of time. I mean, the dude's been in the league 15, 16 seasons, whatever. Jacoby Brissett's been around a long time. My man he's been able to have a decent amount of success. Like, I texted you guys a couple weeks ago, like, my man's almost like comeback player of the year in some of these games. I know the record doesn't say that, but just the way that he had been playing in some of them, you're just like, that's really impressive for a mid-30-year-old dude to be able to still sling it like that. And I think the Cardinals have to look in a different direction. Like, it just didn't work out with Murray. Move on to the next guy. And, that's the real question mark, though, is, I'm sure as an individual, Kyler Murray thinks he's a starter in the NFL, and he's going to want that type of money. And, dude, I just don't see any team being willing to make that investment based off of, what he's put up the last couple of seasons.
I don't think that they should stick with Jacoby next year. I think.
That's not what I'm saying.
I was just going to say from the what I think that Jacoby shows is that you have a guy that has experience that's able to manipulate the offense in a way that they keep them pretty, competitive. They beat Dallas. They've had games that the Cardinals really shouldn't have been in that they have been in because he's able to utilize an offense at a rate that I would still say is not the ceiling that the offense can be, just because they're limited by Jacoby's, whether you want to call it, I don't want to say athleticism because he's still a starting quarterback, but it's like he's not at the tier of quarterback that I think can change the offense. What I think it speaks more to is the fact that by this point in Kyler's career, he should be able to manipulate the offense better than Jacoby does. But he hides his inexperience in terms of just like a mental game by his athleticism. Like, we get allured by how fast he can take off. But what it really is hiding is the fact that he's not able to read a defense and move pieces around to get them where they need to be in the first place. Like, at this point with Kyler's athleticism and how long he's been in the league, the Cardinals should be a very competitive team.
Without a doubt.
But they're not. Like, they've invested in the offensive line. They've invested at the position of wide receiver. You have Trey McBride, who's really sort of a darling of a snag that they have that's really been dominant in the NFL for the past few seasons at the position of tight end. I get at the positioning of running back, they've been hurt this year with the loss of James Conner and guys as we just keep going through the roster. I think that they're a team that's definitely going to make a move at the position of running back next year, where they're going to be in the draft. But yeah, it's time to move on.
And that's the other piece too, is like, what happens to, Josh Gannon? Like, is it another issue where, they put the scapegoat on the head coach, for not putting up the stats that they were looking for, the, wins in the win column? Like that's the thing. I really think how he's turned the team around. Yes, the record doesn't show for it, but also he doesn't have all the pieces to the puzzle. Let's just put that out there. But I have liked what Gannon has been able to do, and it's just a matter of if they keep him around long enough to get a good leader of the system, to continue, or if they just go right back into the coaching carousel and another 3 to 5 years of rebuilding, just like we see so much in this league.
It's going to be tough for the Cardinals. They're in a better position than the Jets, but it's still a tough position. Next game, Packers, Broncos. Packers have been coming on here the last few games going against the Broncos. I think this is going to show more about who the Broncos actually are than who the Packers actually are. I think Micah has a pretty good game this game against Bo Nix. I like the Packers to win the game. Vegas has them as 2.5-point favorite, but I like the Packers to go into Denver and beat them.
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, I do too. Just what I saw for last week. If Micah plays the same way that he does, that he did against Caleb, like, good luck for Bo Nix. That defensive line for the Packers in the first half, Caleb was under pressure 50% of his dropbacks. So 1 in every 2. My man was, in trouble. Bo has the ability to move around, but I don't think he has the elusiveness that Caleb does, the ability to escape the pressure. So I think that's going to catch up to them if they play the same way that they played against the Bears. And then also, man, like we've already talked about, just the year 2 struggles that Bo Nix has shown this season. I think it catches up to him, against a big matchup such as the Packers. The good news is it's in Denver. They still got a really good defense, but if Jordan Love, doesn't turn the ball over and they get their identity with running the ball with Josh Jacobs just like they did last week, like, dude, I think, yeah, the Packers are going to win this game.
Next game, big one. Just there's so many different storylines you could go with for this game. Lions at the Rams right now. Rams -5.5. The Rams are really in a driver's seat from the NFC. The Lions are on the bubble right now. They really need this game to try to get into it. I don't think Stafford would love anything more than to knock his old team out of the playoffs. I feel like as we've talked about before, the Lions are really one Matt Stafford away from being better. Now, the Lions interior, we were chatting last week. I mean, it's trash, like bad. Against this Rams defense, I think that's going to be amplified. I got the Rams in the game. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, just for the Bears' survival in the playoffs, I've got the Rams as well.
There we go.
But like also just as you've talked about, week after week we've seen the inability for if it wasn't for Jahmyr Gibbs, I really think that the Lions, looking at their
they're
record
5-8.
Correct. I think realistically, they would be, like you said, they'd probably be 5-8. That record would be inversed right now. So I think looking at them on paper, especially being in LA, the way that the Rams have been playing incredible football right now. I mean, Puka had 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, and you look at it, like he's beating guys. Like they showed that clip of the touchdown he had. It ended up being a contested ball only because Stafford underthrew it. Like he outran the defender. And when you've got a guy like that and you can't lock him down, oh, wait, you still got Devontae Adams on the other side, and they run the ball really well. Dude, I've said it. The Rams are the best team in the NFC. I still stand by that. I know the Seahawks are playing really good football, but I still give the edge to the Rams, and I'm going to lean on them this week so that the Bears' playoff chances continue to grow.
Just to shout out the Rams, this is what a really good one coaching GM, but I would argue even more. I think a lot of it's McVay, but he clearly has people on both sides, offensively and defensively, that are incredible at scouting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about how they picked up Cooper Kupp, how they found Puka Nakua. Like, they find guys that, A, fit their system, but then, 2, are incredible at what they do. Like, think about how many first-round guys come through at a position of wide receiver that just, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. has had struggles just catching the football. Like, the number one thing we just ask you to do is just catch it, and struggles with that. They find guys who not only are incredible at catching, but then put on a show athletically that you just sort of sit back and you're like, dude, this guy is, like you said, I mean, I think he was the number one wide receiver in the week last week, and he's really been dominant since he showed up with the Rams. And on the defensive side, it's like they go out and get Jared Verse. They get, I mean, they have Brian Young. They find guys that play ball. Like, and they've done it in years that they didn't have draft picks. Like, it's, you got to hand it off to the Rams from that standpoint.
And it's pretty much the same team, you know, that almost beat the Eagles last year, you know, in the playoffs. Like, we're looking at this on paper, you know. Obviously, LA's a dome team. They played in the snow last year in Philly and still almost walked away with the win. You know, that I think had they won that game, they would have been, you know, obviously in the NFC Championship and gone to the Super Bowl. You know, so they were one win away, in my opinion.
If that game had went on for 5 more minutes, they win that game.
Correct.
The Eagles just lived off the back of Saquon. Like, but that game was going in the wrong way. Like, the Rams were mounting a comeback. I know it's more of an off-season thing. The good thing for the Lions, like, just to give them hope, it's a lot easier to find an interior offensive lineman in the draft, mainly because if you're willing to go spend a pick on one, they don't go typically high. Like, usually your guards and your centers, most of them don't get taken in the first round. Most of them are second-round picks. So if you're willing to spend a little bit higher of a capital on a guy, you can do it. And just like the Bears did, I wanted to go back to that Tooney point. I just failed to do it. The number one thing with Tooney was he was always a guard, and that's what Chicago's playing him at. The Chiefs try to play him at tackle, and it's like, was he still somewhat good? Yeah, because he's an athletic freak. Like, that's why he's a professional football player, but that's not his natural position. The fact that the Bears were like, dude, we're gonna put you back in your home at the position of guard. It's why he's having success again, and it's why the Chiefs are struggling running the football. Like, if they had kept him and drafted the tackle like they planned on, the Chiefs probably are able to run the ball a little bit more efficiently. For the Lions next year, they're able to go get that done in the draft possibly. My question for you is Goff's time running out? Like, do you go make it? I don't think it's like in terms of a rookie quarterback or something, but do you go make a trade? Like, what do you do if you're the Lions with what you've seen out of Goff? Do you just keep going with him, or?
I mean, I think realistically, just based off of the family and grit culture that Dan Campbell has created up there, they always talk about that you know, the trade between him and Stafford, and Dan Campbell's like, you're our guy. I think that's really being tested this year. I will say that 100%. I realistically think they stick with him. I do think, obviously, you know, if they fix the offensive line and Goff still sucks next season, I could see them deciding to move on. But that's going to be the biggest question, because the Lions just last week tried to bring Frank Ragnow out of retirement, and he failed his physical. You know, so like the Lions are already trying to fix the problems that they have. You know, and there's not much speculation behind the quarterback. So I think Goff is still doing what he needs to do. Obviously, he's not having as good of a season as last year, but I haven't seen anything where I'm like, this is purely his issue. Although I will say, without Amon-Ra on the field, he looks suspect at best.
Yeah, I mean, now I'll give it to, even with Baker Mayfield. I mean, you start losing wide receivers, it becomes a different game, and Amon-Ra is a game changer with that offense. I think Jameson's really had a good year for him. I think if they could, if they had the offensive line more intact this year, I'd argue that this game's probably flopped in terms of the spread. I think that they're probably the favorite going into it. I think the Lions have a good chances. It's just a matter of, can they block that defensive front? Like, if they can block the defensive front and allow Jahmyr Gibbs to get going, they have a chance in any game. But if you can't get the interior blocked, it's going to be really difficult for the Lions to win going on. Next game, Panthers, Saints, Carolina -2.5. I need the Panthers to win because this was my underdog for the playoffs as a wild card team. So I need the Panthers to win. So I'm gonna take the Panthers for 2.5 points.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The inconsistency of the Saints, I'm going to take the Panthers as well. You know, the Panthers, playing really good football, beat the Rams. Like, they've shown that they're able to put the pieces together and win the games that they have no business winning. You know, they've been competitive pretty much all season long, for the most part. And I think the Saints, man, it comes down to that NFC division rival. And that's where the motivation comes for the Saints, because they have not played anybody good all season besides interconference, or interdivision. And for me, I want the Panthers to win as well, just because I enjoy seeing what Canellis has been able to do this season. We were questioning if he was going to have the ability to stick around long enough to turn it around. And the way that McMillan's playing, the way Dowdle's playing, and just, Bryce Young really stepping up in year 3, like, I'm enjoying it. It's good to see the Panthers to be decent at football again, just to allow for the Buccaneers, and we thought would be the Falcons, to not just run through the NFC South year after year.
Yeah. Next game, Titans-Niners. Titans coming off the win against the Browns. Niners coming off, I believe, a bye week last week. Let me double-check that. Yep, they're coming off the bye. Niners are -12.5 point favorites.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't look at the spread.
Yeah, don't kid me. It didn't matter if what the spread said. I'm taking the Niners in the game. The Titans, they're not a good football team, and the Niners need the game in order to stay in the playoffs. Give the Niners in the game.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, we've talked about the Titans' struggles enough, and the 49ers are really finding their groove, now that Purdy's been back off of injury for a couple of weeks, and they're playing pretty good football, despite all the losses that they've had between Bosa, Fred Warner, and everything. And Kyle Shanahan's, it just, again, shows how good of a coach he is. And, yeah, I take the Niners as well.
Next game, Colts, who are losing Danny Dimes for the season, torn Achilles, going against Seattle, who Seattle is sitting here at 10-3, and I think Seattle is the one team that I can sit back and say that they're the challenge for the Rams in terms of the NFC. I'm going to phrase it. Seattle right now is -13.5. I don't think either one of us is going to pick against Seattle. This is my question for you. You're the head coach of the Colts. I know that this is a loaded question because you don't have all the data. Would you rather take Anthony Richardson or Phillip Rivers?
Yeah, and that's the craziest part of it all, man. It's like, I texted you guys that last night when I heard it, and I was just like, the fact that you would pull a 43-year-old out who has not 44-year-old out who has not played in 5 seasons and choose him over AR, like, that just shows what you think of Anthony Richardson. Like, that's all that it is. You would think that AR would be able to run the system or a watered-down version better than Phillip Rivers could, but it also just goes to show, one, that they think, I think it's obvious that Phillip Rivers has a greater football intellect than AR does, but AR can move. It's like you expect Phillip Rivers to put on a better performance than AR, who could at least keep the chains moving with his legs, and it's like, man, if I was the Colts trying to salvage the playoff opportunity, dude, I would. Oh man, see, you're right. This is a loaded question because it just goes to show there's no faith in Anthony Richardson, and I would call Phillip Rivers. Like, if all he's got to do, take 3 steps, give the ball to JT, catch the ball in the shotgun and get it out within, 3 seconds. Like, I would take Phillip Rivers to be able to do that better than Anthony Richardson.
I'm in the same boat. I think that them calling him shows more about what is happening off the field with Anthony. In terms of off the field, I mean in
preparation.
Preparation, organization, like everything that they see in practice.
Body language.
Yeah. All of that tells them he ain't our starter.
Yeah.
If we want a chance to win and want a chance to try to get where we can be this season, he ain't the guy. As long as Phillip Rivers can throw the football, because at the end of the day, Brady still won a Super Bowl at this age. It's just a physical thing. If he has the ability, this is the thing. Phillip Rivers didn't play under Steichen. Steichen has made multiple quarterbacks look phenomenal. Minshew, Danny Dimes, he can coach. They know what they are offensively. I sort of think of this like Kyle Shanahan. He knows what he wants. For me, would this be the greatest comeback story ever? For Phillip, or even better, would this solidify him as a Hall of Famer if he took the Colts to the Super Bowl and won it?
I mean, I would say yes, but dude, those odds are huge.
Huge.
I think my man just got tired of being home with 11 kids. I need to read his book to see how he handles it all with all my kids. But, dude, I think the fact that he was unable to do it with the Chargers, when he was in his prime, with LT and everything, dude, I just don't know. LT, Antonio Gates, pretty good defense. I think it would be a good story. If he comes back, he wins a game in the playoffs, maybe takes them to the AFC Championship somehow, some way. Because at the end of the day, the Colts still have a really good defense.
Yes.
They
still have JT.
Correct. They've still got JT. They've got weapons on that offense, and all Phillip Rivers has to do is not turn the ball over. I think this is another, Joe Flacco type situation, because Phillip Rivers still looks like the same dude. He didn't get fat, he still looks like the same guy ready to go. And, I mean, he's been coaching football for the last 5 years, so the man's mind is still there. It's just, dude, if I was Phillip Rivers' wife, I'd just be like, "What? Why are you doing this to me?"
Oh, I can tell you why.
Yeah, some of this.
Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if someone at the age of 44 was like, "Hey, man, for $5 million, you think you can come play 5 games and maybe take us to the playoffs?" I'd be like, you take that deal, Udovich? I'd take that deal. Yeah. So I hope for Phillip Rivers, he comes out and, like you said, if they decide to go in that direction, I hope he does well. I do think that if they go Anthony Richardson, it's going to be an absolute mess again. That's what my gut says. Sunday night, Vikings, who are coming off big win against the Commanders, going against the Cowboys, who are coming off the loss this past week to the Lions. Lions really put it on them. I want to start off with this. What we saw at the end of that Cowboys game is why the Steelers got rid of Pickens. We saw we saw that part. It's this ultimate dichotomy. We know how great he can be, but then we also see how that deep shot that Dak threw to him, dude, that was a catchable ball.
Yes, it was.
That was the ultimate lack of effort in that catch, and the game was still, at that moment
winnable.
In balance.
Yeah.
That's the trouble. And the issue is I don't think that that's something that a coach can fix. You can scream at a guy all you want. You can fine him. You can trade him. You can do all these different things. But when a guy just, I don't want to do it, happens. It's the same thing with Randy Moss. At the end of after the time with Brady, he's getting cut from team after team because he'd just be like, "I ain't running the route. I know I'm not getting the ball, so I ain't running. I don't care." How would you fix it?
And that's the thing. Is just like you said, you can't fix it. These guys are making millions of dollars. There comes a point where they choose to make business decisions. Now, we can argue it's not good for the game, You know, like there's without a doubt that would be an easy case to make. But when it comes down to, you know, the love for the game versus, you know, keeping your body healthy, you know, like, and that's the thing. Even if he laid out, you know, like, okay, you get tackled every time you catch a ball. You get tackled every time you don't catch a ball, you know, if it's thrown in your direction. You know, so, like, you're going to take the hit. You know, I would much rather lay out on the turf than get popped by a middle linebacker over the middle. You know, like, that's just the way that it goes. And, you know, when you don't make those types of plays, it just shows – I think it shows a lack of heart for your team, you know, and willing to be that team player, especially when you're fighting to go to the playoffs like the Cowboys are, you know, after early season struggles. And, yeah, man, there's honestly no way to fix that.
This is, I feel like we don't really get into these arguments that much. I think from, like, in terms of I mean me, you, and Maul, but, like, I hear it all the time with other people. It's like they start going, well, if you could build an NFL team, like, who would you go get at wide receiver? And guys are all, like, they latch on to Randy, which, don't get me wrong, from an athletic standpoint, Randy's probably unmatched. But from a complete wide receiver, it's Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Like, at no point did you ever question whether Jerry was going to give his all on every single play. It was never a question. Never. I would argue that Jerry, if you asked him to come out and play in the NFL right now, if the Niners needed him, that he'd probably give it his best effort, and he'd give more effort than anybody else they have on that field.
100%.
Like, he was different, and that's, for me, that's like it's so difficult to watch a guy like Pickens give up, and that's like, it makes me so mad, because clearly he has talent. Like, you have something that, like, you're just born with. Now, don't get me wrong, he's worked hard in the weight room, catching balls to get to this level. But from a standpoint of, like, some guys are just, I can't imagine what Jerry Rice would have done in the NFL if he had Randy Moss's athleticism. Like, he already has pretty much every record. I don't care if they played 30 games in NFL season. No one would have touched Jerry if he had Jerry's athleticism. So, for me in this game, Dallas is -6. I like Dallas in the game just because I don't trust JJ. And
no.
I know that you're probably going to go with the Cowboys because you need the Vikings to lose again. Where are you at with the game?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, you know, look at the team that they played last week. You know, Dallas has a substantially better offense, you know, than the Commanders do. And that's really what I'm going based upon. It's not even just the division hate. You know, like, Dak has been in those situations with a good defense. Like, he knows what to do with the ball for the most part, you know, and I don't see JJ, you know, being able to put up huge numbers. Mostly I'm pretty mad because Justin Jefferson has been a bust for me in fantasy this season, but we won't talk about that.
That does hurt. Monday night, Dolphins-Steelers. Tua snaps, you know, a pretty big streak, which was in cold games, Tua had never won a game.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to bust that against the Jets. They're going to Pittsburgh Monday night. You know it's going to be cold. Steelers -3. Dolphins coming off, like I just said, the wins against the Jets. Steelers coming off the win against the Ravens. Who you got in the game?
I'll take Steelers. I know Mike McDaniel, he's won 4 straight, I think, the last that's the streak that he's on right now after the bad start that they've had. But just playing against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, cold at night, like, we have not seen the consistency out of the Dolphins that we've been looking for, you know, and the Steelers, they're still fighting for the top of the division, you know, so why would they give up a game when they have the opportunity to win the AFC North? And I just think if you had to take between, you know, immobile Aaron Rodgers and an immobile Tua, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers to win them the game.
So the Dolphins started off 3 straight losses, then a win against the Jets, 3 straight losses, win against the Falcons, get blown out by Baltimore. We sort of thought that's over for the Dolphins, and here they are, like you said. Winners are 4 straight. Big win against the Bills. They took the Commanders to overtime. Really shouldn't even went to overtime with that field goal decision by McDaniels. Win against the Saints and then win against the Jets. It's hard pick against the Dolphins because at least they've been consistent over the last 4 games as compared to the Steelers, that you really just don't know what team you're going to see. And that for me is why, I'm going to take the Dolphins to wrap up, as we sit here and look at the games that we talked about a bunch.
That pretty much wraps up this episode. Tune in and make sure to like us on Instagram and everything else. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Pops. We're pulling chalks. See you.